Let's talk about that Packers loss to the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. Well, we lose 10-7 to the Eagles in actually kind of an entertaining game. Not going to lie. Both defenses playing really well. Offense is just having a bad night, man. Probably the one bright spot on offense for Green Bay was Josh Jacobs, because he got the only touchdown and he had a few nice runs. Dontavian Wicks had a nice game. He got a few receptions, had some key grabs. Even Bo Melton got in the action. He got 2 or 3 grabs and one critical first down right towards the end there, but sadly not enough. Jordan Love, just not a good game. Just missing on throws, not making great decisions, missing wide open players a couple of times. Just not a good game for him tonight. Pressured a lot. It's getting to the point now where we've got to see him take that next step. He's a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. We've had 30 years of excellence, and we've seen what he can do. We've seen what Jordan Love can do. We saw it at the end of 2023. We saw it in flashes last year, but we've seen it a couple of times this year. That game against the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, he was awesome. He had an amazing game. And then he just goes out and has duds like this. I know he's growing, and we've still got plenty of time. There's still a few years left on his contracts and stuff, but it's starting to get to the point now where we've had this young core of players. Watson locked up for another year. Kraft, we've got Reed, Dubs, all in the next year or two coming up to contract years, so we're just not going to be able to keep all of them. Defense as well, we've got a good core there, but we can't keep this group together. It's very, very talented on paper, but on the field it's just not translating into what we know that it could be, right? Because this defense has played really well this year. The offense has, in bits and bobs, they've not played great. I'd say overall they've probably played a little below average and certainly below their talent level. But we've seen flashes of great offense from this team. The Steelers game, the shining example. Even the Cowboys game, that fourth quarter and overtime, that was awesome from Jordan Love. He was brilliant, and the offense has had some good games. They've looked good in places, but no, it's too deep into the season now. It's week 10 is upon us, and we can't be looking like this. I mentioned 2023 earlier on, and it was a little later on in the season that we started to turn it off, and we were in a considerably worse place then than we are now. But I think the weight of expectation this year, a couple of years removed from that season, I don't think we're going to quite see the same sort of miraculous comeback down the stretch that we saw a couple of years ago. I'd love to be wrong. Certainly a couple of years ago, if memory serves correct, we weren't quite as banged up injuries wise, but now we've got Tucker Kraft out for the season. That's probably the biggest loss. You could argue Jordan Love would be the biggest loss on offense if he was gone for the season, but we saw a couple of games from Malik Willis last year when Jordan was out for a couple of weeks, and he played really well. So you never know, if Jordan Love was to go out, then maybe Malik Willis, you kind of think, well, we still have hope with Malik Willis, but I don't know, Luke Musgrave hasn't really done that much. He's just been pretty quiet, and we're getting tight ends off the street otherwise. So I think Tucker Kraft is probably the biggest loss to this offense that possible. Jaden Reed's obviously still out. He's on the verge of coming back. I don't think they've opened his 3-week practice window after coming out of IR yet. He's still out. He's not playing. Matthew Golden was out with a shoulder injury tonight, and we lost Romeo Doubs. That's arguably your top 4 receivers on the team. They're all out. And Watson did some nice stuff. He can go, but we're seeing this thing now where Watson's been out, and as soon as he comes back in, everyone else is going out. It's tough, and it seems to be like this every single year. I know all teams deal with injuries. I get that, but it just feels every year like we are the worst team with injuries. And you look at the Ravens and the Niners, and they've been decimated with injuries. So, we don't have it quite as bad as them. And that game, to slip to 5-3-1 after being number 1 seed in the NFC for a few weeks, is quite a hard loss to take. And that's a couple of losses in a row now. Last week was against a Carolina team that a lot of people were probably writing off. I think a lot of people underestimated the Carolina Panthers last week. You know, they're the Panthers. You know, they haven't been good for years. But then, you know, it's the same with the Browns. You know, don't sleep on these teams. And then, you know, realistically, the Eagles are probably going to go to the playoffs again. They've just come off a Super Bowl win. And, you know, if you look at that game as a whole, we kind of played them pretty close. It was only a 3-point game in the end. But, you know, our defense played really well. And offense, just Jordan Love just looked erratic. You know, he's not got the trusted targets, but still, it's a tough loss to take, really. Penalties again. We had some bad penalties. The Eagles seem to actually come off the worst in penalties tonight, which I suppose is good. But yeah, no, it's a hard loss to take. It's very disappointing when there were really plenty of opportunities to get the ball down there, and Josh Jacobs run it well, and you think that would open play action passes and pass game, but it just didn't. And then at the end there, that was a farce, man. I don't know what was going on. Go and send the kicking team out. Eagles call a timeout, and we kick the ball anyway, like 5 seconds after the timeout had been taken. And if I was a Philly fan, I would have been pretty pissed that wasn't a flag. But then we send Jordan Love out, who just takes 3 seconds off the clock by just launching it over to the sideline for no apparent reason. And then we go and kick it anyway for a 64-yard attempt, which was never going in. Even the attempt that McManus had a few seconds earlier was short. And you saw the flags, you saw the wind, it was swirling. Lambeau Field's kind of infamous for that anyway. Yeah, bizarre, really strange sequence of events, and then just a disgusting kick at the end, But there you have it. The Packers are 5-3-2, and that is what it is right now. I'm going to go cry about it, and as always, go Pack Go.